Before I share my story, let me ask you, what would you do if the woman who promised to help your family ended up tearing it apart, one rule at a time? I thought I was just opening my home to my mother-in-law, letting her help after the baby was born. But the day she made her first rule, I realized I'd spent years letting her take up more and more space, never seeing how it would change everything. This isn't just a story about in-laws or house rules. It's about the moment you decide to stop shrinking for someone else's comfort and the courage it takes to reclaim your own home, even if it means risking your marriage. So settle in, and if you've ever wondered what you'd do in my shoes, hit that subscribe button. Because what happened next changed not just my family, but the way I see myself forever. The day my mother-in-law made her first rule in my house, I realized I'd spent my whole life making room for her, never expecting she'd take everything. It started with a phone call, not the kind that comes in the middle of the night, but the kind that makes your heart skip a beat before you even answer. My husband, Mark, was on the other end, his voice bright, a little too cheerful. Mom wants to come stay with us for a while, just until the baby's a little older. She says she wants to help. I hesitated, the words catching in my throat. Mark's mother, Dolores, had always been a force of nature, sharp, opinionated, the kind of woman who filled a room with her presence. She'd helped us before, after our first child was born, swooping in with casseroles and advice, rearranging the kitchen, telling me how to do everything from burping the baby to folding the laundry. I told myself it was just her way, that she meant well, that she loved us. But the truth was, I'd always felt a little smaller when she was around, a little less sure of myself, a little more like a guest in my own home. When Dolores arrived, she came with suitcases and shopping bags, her arms full of gifts for the baby, her voice full of plans. "I'll just stay in the guest room," she said, her smile wide. "I'll cook, I'll clean, I'll take care of everything. You just focus on the baby." At first, it was a relief. I was exhausted, overwhelmed, grateful for the extra hands. Dolores made dinner every night, did the laundry, kept the house spotless. She held the baby so I could shower, rocked him to sleep so I could nap, told me stories about when Mark was little. But then, the rules started. The first rule came on a Tuesday morning, as I was making coffee in the kitchen. "No shoes in the house," Dolores announced, her voice firm. "It's unsanitary. From now on, everyone leaves their shoes at the door." I looked at Mark, hopping for support, but he just shrugged, his eyes on his phone. "It's her house now," he joked, not seeing the way my hands clenched around the mug. I smiled, trying to be gracious, but inside I felt a flicker of resentment. It was my house, my kitchen, my family. But I let it go. I told myself it was just a small thing, that it wasn't worth fighting over, that Dolores was just trying to help. But the rules kept coming. No eating in the living room. No TV after 8 p.m., no visitors without her approval. No talking about work at the dinner table. No leaving dishes in the sink. No using the washing machine after 6 p.m. Each rule chipped away at my sense of home, my sense of self, my sense of belonging. I found myself tiptoeing around my own house, afraid to make a mistake, afraid to upset Dolores, afraid to ask Mark for help. Mark, for his part, seemed oblivious. He was grateful for the help, happy to have his mother around, relieved to have someone else take charge. He spent more time at work, less time at home, leaving me alone with Dolores and the baby. I tried to talk to him, to tell him how I felt, but he brushed me off. "She's just trying to help, honey. Don't make a big deal out of it." But it was a big deal. It was my life. That night I sat on the porch, the stars bright above me, the air cool and sweet. I thought about the life I'd built, the family I'd tried to hold together, the home I'd made with my own hands. I realized then that sometimes, the people who promise to help are the ones who take the most. And sometimes, the greatest act of love is refusing to let yourself be erased. If you've ever felt like a stranger in your own home, or if you want to see what happens when a woman finally claims her space, don't forget to like and subscribe. And tell me in the comments, what's the hardest rule someone ever tried to make in your house? I read every story, and you never know who you might help by sharing. The days after dolors moved and blurred together, each one a little more suffocating than the last. I tried to keep my routines, morning coffee on the porch, a quick walk with the stroller, a few minutes of quiet reading while the baby napped. But dolors was always there, hovering, correcting, helping. She'd rearrange the pantry, refold the towels, critique my cooking, and offer suggestions for everything from diaper brands to bedtime routines. At first, I tried to be grateful. I told myself that having another adult in the house was a blessing, that dolors meant well, that I was lucky to have help. But every day, I felt myself shrinking a little more, my confidence eroding with every new rule, every sideways glance, every sigh of disappointment. Mark seemed to thrive under his mother's regime. He came home to hot meals, clean laundry, a spotless house. He praised dolors for her energy, her organization, her old-fashioned values. He started spending more time at work, staying late for meetings, going out for drinks with colleagues. When he was home, he was distracted, glued to his phone or the TV, barely noticing the tension simmering beneath the surface. I tried to talk to him, to tell him how I felt, but he brushed me off. "You're overreacting, honey. Mom's just trying to help. Can't you be a little more grateful?" I bit my tongue, swallowing my frustration, my loneliness, my growing sense of isolation. The baby, too, seemed to sense the change. He cried more, slept less, clung to me when dolors tried to take him. I found myself retreating to the nursery, closing the door, rocking him in the dark, whispering stories and songs just for us. It was the only place I felt safe, the only place I felt like myself. One afternoon, I overheard dolors on the phone with one of her friends. "She's hopeless, really. No sense of order. The house was a mess before I got here. Mark is lucky I'm around. I don't know how she managed before." Her words stung, sharp and cold. I wanted to confront her, to defend myself, to remind her that this was my home, my family, my life. But I stayed silent, afraid of making things worse, afraid of losing what little peace I had left. Ruth noticed the change in me. She called every evening, her voice full of concern. "You sound tired, Anna. Are you eating? Are you sleeping?" I tried to reassure her, but she heard the truth in my voice. "Don't let her take over, Anna. Don't let her make you feel small. You're the mother. This is your home." I nodded, tears stinging my eyes. "I know, Ruth, but I don't know how to fight her. Mark won't listen. The baby needs me. I feel trapped." Ruth was silent for a moment, then said, "You're stronger than you think. You've survived worse. You'll survive this." That night I lay awake, listening to the sounds of the house, Dolor's footsteps in the hallway, Mark's soft snore, the baby's gentle breathing. I thought about Tom, about the life we'd built, about the home I'd made with my own hands. I realized then that sometimes the hardest thing you can do is stand your ground. And sometimes the greatest act of love is refusing to let yourself be erased. The weeks passed and Dolor's rules multiplied. She started keeping a notebook on the kitchen counter, jotting down every infraction, dirty dishes left in the sink, shoes not lined up by the door, laundry baskets not emptied by noon. She left notes on the fridge. No snacking after dinner. No cell phones at the table. No visitors without my approval. I felt like a child in my own home, tiptoeing around Dolor's moods, second-guessing every decision, apologizing for things I hadn't done. I started to dread coming home, to dread the sound of her voice, to dread the way Mark looked at me, tired, impatient, always siding with his mother. The baby grew fussier, waking more often at night, crying for hours. Dolors insisted it was my fault, that I was spoiling him, that I needed to let him cry it out. I tried to stand my ground, to trust my instincts, but Mark always took her side. "Mom knows best," he'd say, his voice dismissive. "You're too soft, Anna. You need to toughen up." I wanted to scream, to remind him that I was the mother, that I knew my child better than anyone. But I bit my tongue, afraid of making things worse, afraid of losing what little peace I had left. One evening, after a particularly tense dinner, I found myself alone in the nursery, rocking the baby to sleep. The house was quiet, the only sound the soft hum of the heater and the baby's gentle breathing. I looked around the room, at the mobile I'd made by hand, at the quilt my mother had sewn, at the photos of Tom and me on the wall. I I thought about the life I'd built, the sacrifices I'd made, the love I'd given. I wondered when I'd become invisible, when my voice had stopped mattering, when my home had become someone else's domain. The next morning, I woke to find Dolores in the kitchen, her notebook open, her pen poised. "I've made a new rule," she announced, her voice brisk. "From now on, Mark and I will handle the finances. You're too busy with the baby. It's better this way." I stared at her, disbelief and anger warring inside me. "What do you mean, handle the finances?" She smiled, her eyes cold. "Mark's paycheck will go into a new account. I'll pay the bills, manage the budget, make sure everything runs smoothly. You just focus on the baby." I felt a wave of panic, the room spinning around me. "That's not your decision to make, Dolores. This is my home, my family, my life." She shrugged, her smile never faltering. "I'm just trying to help, dear. You should be grateful." I tried to talk to Mark, to make him see what was happening, but he brushed me off. "Mom's just trying to make things easier, Anna. You're overreacting." I wanted to scream, to shake him, to make him see the truth. But he was blind to it, lost in his own world, grateful for the order Dolores brought, unwilling to rock the boat. Ruth noticed the change in me. She called every evening, her voice full of concern. "You sound tired, Anna. Are you eating? Are you sleeping?" I tried to reassure her, but she heard the truth in my voice. "Don't let her take over, Anna. Don't let her make you feel small. You're the mother. This is your home." I nodded, tears stinging my eyes. "I know, Ruth, but I don't know how to fight her. Mark won't listen. The baby needs me. I feel trapped." Ruth was silent for a moment, then said, "You're stronger than you think. You've survived worse. You'll survive this." That night I lay awake, listening to the sounds of the house, Dolores' footsteps in the hallway, Mark's soft snore, the baby's gentle breathing. I thought about Tom, about the life we'd built, about the home I'd made with my own hands. I realized then that sometimes the hardest thing you can do is stand your ground. And sometimes the greatest act of love is refusing to let yourself be erased. But the next morning, I found a new rule taped to the fridge. "No locked doors in this house. Privacy is for people with nothing to hide." That was the moment I knew something had to change. The no locked doors rule was the last straw. I stood in the kitchen, staring at the note Dolores had taped to the fridge, my hands shaking with anger. I thought about all the boundaries she'd already crossed. My kitchen, my routines, my marriage, my motherhood. Now even my privacy was gone. I felt exposed, vulnerable, like a guest in my own home. I tried to talk to Mark that night, waiting until Dolores was in her room, the baby finally asleep. "Mark, this has to stop," I said, my voice trembling. "I can't live like this. I can't keep pretending everything is fine." He looked up from his phone, his eyes tired. "What are you talking about, Anna?" I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. "Your mother is running our lives. She's making rules, taking over the finances, telling me how to raise our child. I feel like I don't exist anymore." He sighed, rubbing his temples. "She's just trying to help. You're overreacting." I shook my head, tears stinging my eyes. "No, Mark, I'm not. I'm losing myself. I'm losing us." He was silent for a long moment, then said, "Maybe you just need to relax. Mom's only here for a little while." I stared at him, disbelief and hurt warring inside me. "How long is a little while, Mark? Until I'm gone, until there's nothing left of me." He didn't answer. He just went to bed, leaving me alone in the kitchen, the note on the fridge a silent accusation. The next day, I tried to reclaim my space. I made breakfast the way I liked, played music in the living room, took the baby for a walk in the park. For a few hours, I felt like myself again, strong, capable, alive. But when I got home, Dolores was waiting. "Where have you been?" she demanded, her voice sharp. "You didn't tell me you were leaving. The baby needs a schedule. You need to be more responsible." I bit my tongue, refusing to let her see how much her words hurt. "I'm his mother, Dolores. I know what he needs." She scoffed, her eyes cold. "Clearly, you don't. If you did, you'd listen to me." That afternoon, I found her in the nursery, going through my drawers, sorting through my things. "What are you doing?" I asked, my voice shaking. She looked up, her smile tight. Just organizing. You have too much clutter. It's not good for the baby. I felt a wave of rage, the room spinning around me. Get out, dolers. Get out of my room. Get out of my things. She stood, her posture stiff. This is my son's house. I have every right to be here. I shook my head, my voice breaking. No, dolers, this is my home, my family, my life. That night, I called Ruth, my voice trembling. I can't do this anymore, Ruth. I can't keep living like this. She listened, her voice full of sympathy and fire. Anna, you have to stand up for yourself. You have to set boundaries. You have to make Mark choose. I nodded, wiping my eyes. I'm scared, Ruth. What if he chooses her? She was silent for a moment, then said, Then you'll know, and you'll be free. The next morning, I sat at the kitchen table, the baby in my arms, the house quiet around me. I thought about Tom, about the life we'd built, about the home I'd made with my own hands. I thought about the woman I used to be, confident, independent, unafraid. I realized then that I was done shrinking for someone else's comfort. And sometimes, the greatest act of love is reclaiming your own life. That evening, I waited until Mark came home from work. I asked him to sit down, my voice steady. Mark, I can't live like this anymore. Your mother has to go. If you can't see what she's doing to us, then maybe you should go with her. He stared at me, shock and anger flashing in his eyes. You're making me choose. I nodded, my heart pounding. Yes, I am. He was silent for a long moment, then stood, his shoulders slumping. I need to think. He left the house, the door closing softly behind him. I sat at the table, the baby in my arms, the house finally quiet. I realized then that sometimes the hardest thing you can do is stand your ground. And sometimes the greatest act of love is refusing to let yourself be erased. The hours after Mark left felt endless. I sat at the kitchen table, the baby asleep in my arms, the house so quiet I could hear the tick of the old clock on the wall. I thought about the years I'd spent building this home, about the love and laughter that had once filled every room. I wondered if I'd made a mistake, if I'd pushed too hard, if I'd finally broken something that couldn't be fixed. Dolers stayed in her room, the door closed, her footsteps muffled on the carpet. I could feel her anger radiating through the walls, a silent storm waiting to break. I tried to keep my fear in check, to remind myself that I was doing the right thing, that I was fighting for my family, for my marriage, for myself. The next morning, Mark came home, his face drawn, his eyes red from lack of sleep. We need to talk, he said, his voice flat. I nodded, my heart pounding. I'm listening. He sat across from me, his hands folded on the table, his gaze fixed on the floor. Mom, not going to leave, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. She says she has nowhere else to go. She says she needs us. I shook my head, my voice trembling. She doesn't need us, Mark. She needs control. She's tearing us apart. He looked up, pain and confusion in his eyes. I don't know what to do, Anna. I feel like I'm being pulled in two directions. I reached for his hand, my own shaking. You have to choose, Mark. You have to decide what kind of husband you want to be, what kind of father, what kind of man. He pulled his hand away, his jaw clenched. I need time. He left the house again, the door closing behind him with a finality that made my heart ache. The days that followed were a blur of tension and silence. Dolers moved through the house like a ghost, her presence heavy, her words few. She stopped making rules, stopped leaving notes, stopped trying to control everything. But the damage was done. The trust was broken. The home I'd built felt like a battleground, every room a reminder of what I'd lost. Ruth came by every day, her presence a comfort. She helped with the baby, made meals, listened as I poured out my fears and frustrations. You did the right thing, Anna, she said, her voice gentle. You stood up for yourself, you set boundaries, that's what love looks like. I nodded, tears slipping down my cheeks. I just wish it didn't hurt so much. She hugged me, her arms warm and steady. Healing always hurts, Anna, but it's worth it. One evening, as I was rocking the baby to sleep, Mark came home. He stood in the doorway, his face pale, his eyes full of regret. I talked to Mom, he said, his voice quiet. I told her she has to go. I told her this is our home, our family, our life. I looked at him, hope and fear warring inside me. What did she say? He sighed, rubbing his temples. She was angry. She said I was ungrateful, that I was choosing you over her, but she agreed to leave. She's packing her things now. I felt a wave of relief, gratitude swelling in my chest. Thank you, Mark. Thank you for choosing us. He hugged me, his arms tight around me, his voice breaking. I'm sorry, Anna. I should have seen what she was doing. I should have stood up for you sooner. I hugged him back, my heart full. We all make mistakes, Mark. What matters is that we learn from them. The next morning, Dolores left, her suitcases packed, her eyes cold. She didn't say goodbye, didn't look back, didn't offer any words of comfort or regret. I watched her go, a strange mix of sadness and relief washing over me. I realized then that sometimes, the hardest thing you can do is let go. And sometimes, the greatest act of love is choosing yourself. After Dolores left, the house felt strangely empty. The silence was different now, no longer heavy with tension, but echoing with the memory of all that had happened. I walked from room to room, opening windows, letting in fresh air, reclaiming my space. I put the kitchen back the way I liked it, rearranged the pantry, threw out Dolores' notebook of rules. I washed the curtains, scrubbed the floors, filled the house with the scent of lemon and lavender. Mark was quiet for days, moving through the house like a man waking from a long, uneasy dream. He spent more time with the baby, taking him for walks, reading him stories, learning how to soothe him when he cried. I watched him, my heart aching with love and hope and a little bit of fear. I wondered if we could ever find our way back to each other, if the wounds Dolores had left would ever truly heal. Ruth came by every evening, her arms full of groceries and her heart full of wisdom. You did it, Anna, she said, her voice full of pride. You took your life back. You showed Mark what it means to be strong. I smiled, my heart swelling. I just hope it's enough. I just hope we can heal. She hugged me, her arms warm and steady. Healing takes time, Anna, but you're on the right path. One afternoon, as I was folding laundry, Mark came into the room, his face serious. Anna, can we talk? He asked, his voice hesitant. I nodded, setting the laundry aside. Of course. He sat beside me, his hands folded in his lap, his eyes full of regret. I'm sorry for everything, he said, his voice trembling. I let Mom take over. I let her hurt you. I let her come between us. I should have stood up for you. I should have protected you. I reached for his hand, squeezing it tight. We all make mistakes, Mark. What matters is that we learn from them. He nodded, tears slipping down his cheeks. I want to make it right, Anna. I want to be a better husband, a better father, a better man. I hugged him, my heart full. We'll figure it out together. As the weeks passed, Mark and I worked to rebuild our marriage. We talked more, listened more, made time for each other. We went on walks, cooked meals together, laughed at the baby's antics. We learned to trust each other again, to lean on each other, to forgive. The baby thrived, his laughter filling the house, his first steps celebrated with tears and cheers. I felt myself coming back to life, my confidence returning, my sense of self growing stronger with every passing day. One evening, as we sat on the porch watching the sunset, Mark turned to me, his eyes full of gratitude. Thank you for not giving up on me, Anna. Thank you for fighting for us. I smiled, my heart full. That's what love is, Mark. It's fighting for each other even when it's hard. He hugged me, his arms tight around me, his voice breaking. I love you, Anna. I always have. I hugged him back, my tears falling freely. I love you too, Mark, always. As the seasons changed, so did our family. We grew closer, stronger, more connected. The wounds of the past faded, replaced by new memories, new traditions, new hope. I realized then that healing isn't about forgetting what happened. It's about choosing to move forward together. And I promised myself that, whatever happened next, I would never let myself be erased. As spring turned to summer, the house began to feel like home again. The baby's laughter echoed through the rooms, sunlight streamed through the windows, and the scent of fresh bread and blooming roses filled the air. I found myself smiling more, laughing more, feeling lighter than I had in years. Mark and I created new routines: Saturday morning pancakes, Sunday walks in the park, quiet evenings on the porch after the baby was asleep. We talked about everything and nothing, sharing our hopes and fears, our dreams for the future. We learned to trust each other again, to lean on each other, to forgive. Ruth visited often, her arms full of flowers and her heart full of wisdom. She helped me plant a new garden, taught me how to make her famous lemon bars, listened as I poured out my worries and joys. She reminded me that family isn't just about blood. It's about the people who show up, who stand by you, who love you even when you're at your lowest. One afternoon, as I was weeding the garden, Mark came outside, the baby toddling behind him. "Anna, look at him go." Mark laughed, pride shining in his eyes. I smiled, my heart swelling with love. "He's growing so fast, I don't want to miss a moment." Mark hugged me, his arms strong and steady. "We won't, not anymore." We watched the baby chase butterflies, his laughter ringing out across the yard. I realized then that the home I'd fought so hard to protect was more than just walls and windows. It was the love we shared, the memories we made, the family we built together. Linda and I grew closer, our old rivalry replaced by a new understanding. She started asking for my advice, inviting me to help plan family events, including me in decisions big and small. I saw the effort she made, the way she tried to make amends, the way she listened when I spoke. One evening, as we sat on the porch watching the sunset, Linda turned to me, her voice soft. "Thank you for forgiving me, Anna. I know I haven't always been kind. I wanted to be seen, too." I squeezed her hand, my own eyes shining. "We all want to be seen, Linda. We all want to matter." She smiled, relief flooding her face. "I'm glad we have each other." As the seasons changed, so did our family. We grew closer, stronger, more connected. The wounds of the past faded, replaced by new memories, new traditions, new hope. I realized then that healing isn't about forgetting what happened. It's about choosing to move forward together. And I promised myself that, whatever happened next, I would never let myself be erased. Sometimes, the people who promise to help are the ones who test our strength the most. I never imagined that opening my home to my mother-in-law would mean losing my voice, my marriage, and almost myself. But life has a way of showing us that our worth isn't measured by how much we give up, but by the boundaries we hold and the love we fight to protect. If you've ever felt like a stranger in your own home, or if you've ever had to reclaim your space from someone who tried to take it over, I hope you know you're not alone. I know what it's like to sit in the quiet after everyone's gone, to wonder if you did enough, if you loved enough, if you mattered enough. I know what it's like to feel the ache of old wounds and the hope of new beginnings, to want to hold on and let go at the same time. But I also know that healing is possible. That courage is a choice you make every day, sometimes in small ways, sometimes in ways that change everything. I know that you can be pushed out and still come back stronger, that you can be broken and still be whole, that you can be overlooked and still be the heart of your family. Would you have set boundaries, or would you have kept the peace for the sake of family? Have you ever had to choose between keeping the peace and keeping your self-respect? Tell me in the comments. I'd love to hear your story, because sometimes sharing our pain is the first step toward healing. If this story touched your heart, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, and share it with someone who might need a little hope tonight. Your support means more than you know. Thank you for listening and for being part of this family. Until next time, take care of yourself, and remember, even after the deepest heartbreak, you can still choose to begin again. And if you want to see what happens when a woman finally chooses herself, or if you believe in the power of second chances, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, because the next story might just be the one you need.